You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. It is Monday, December 19th, 2022, joined by my co-host, Kristina Dennis. How you doing, Kristina?
I'm doing great. How are you, Damon Frank?
I am doing fabulous. It is
Good.
right before Christmas. We are careening
It's
into
here.
it. Yes,
It's
and
here.
this is a very sober time for people. Let me tell you, a lot of people out there struggling, Kristina, a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
not struggling. They've done the deal, they've done the work, and they're having fun this holiday season. So I'm so glad to be joined with you today because, I love Mondays because we always chat about kind of like what's on our mind and what's going on in our sobriety. We pick kind of a
That's
light
right.
topic, but we have fun, which is what it's all about.
It is. And it's important. Before getting sober, I didn't even know people could have fun in recovery. And I think it's really important to, we don't do such a good PR job about what recovery is all about. And that was a big secret to me. So I love that we do this on Mondays and we let people know you still live, you still have a wonderful life. It's still there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? And we wanted to talk about our experience with going through a lot of Christmases sober, right? And
Yes.
if anybody's listening and this is your first holiday season sober, God bless you. We're thinking about you. It's going to work out.
Yes.
Hold tight, do the work, hold tight. It's going to be fine. But it can be a really, really stressful time. And I know on the Recovered Life Network, we talk a lot about what's going on. Our recovery coaches are always talking about this in our daily meetings and stuff about, putting your sobriety first. And we want to do a whole episode about why you want to put your sobriety first and Christmas second. And I know
Yes.
that might sound, kind of a no-brainer for some people, but other people might go, well, wait, no, there's so much going on in my life. I have to put the holidays first and not my recovery first.
Yeah. Let me just get through this. That's always a dangerous statement. Let me just get through this and I'll be back. I'll be back in my meetings or, I have to. It's Christmas Eve. I can't miss this. And I am, I was raised up in you go to your meeting, your support group. Of course, we have the wonderful group coaching meetings on Recovered Life, no matter what. And I'm really, really glad that that was the way that it was inferred to me. And I was kind of taught that from the beginning, because if you don't go to them, you're not really, I'll speak for me. When I didn't go to them, I've been sober 25 years. So there were times I made contrary decisions. When I didn't, it was not good. It wasn't good for the people that insisted I be there. It wasn't good for me. It is a very anxiety, anxious time for our entire world. And if you're a sensitive being like me, that doesn't go away. And sometimes that's even more amplified during this time of year.
You know what's tough, I think, for me, and I got to tell you, I got swept up in things last weekend, right? Like I really got swept up in things because, look, my to-do list gets very big.
Right.
I have anxiety about, okay, did I get everybody a gift? Oh, there's some people in my family, Kristina, that I want to give a gift to, but they're so difficult. There's like pulling out what they want. And you have all that
Right.
anxiety. Like we're having people over. I was just sharing, I feel like I'm in traction just from cleaning up, the house over the weekend.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Oh, man.
it's so easy. I've had this thing since I've been sober is that, almost every day I take time out in the morning and I thank God for yesterday clean and sober. And I ask God for another day clean and sober. Right. And it's so easy just to say, oh, I wake up, I think, okay, I got to do that. Wait, I need a cup of coffee. And then the texts start coming, the
Yep.
emails, I start freaking, I got to do this, I got to do that. And what I've done really, really kind of subconsciously at first is to put my sobriety second. I'm really telling
Yes.
myself, hey, you know what? All these things come before, and then I'll take some time out to touch base and make sure that I'm cool and I'm on the path for the day. And I've
So
noticed this.
Totally. And we get all these things back. We get families back. We get the ability to show up. Some of us may feel like we have to make up for the years that we weren't able to be there or didn't show up. And it's very easy to get swept away in it. I love the joy that people have. I'm also very, very cognizant of that this is sometimes very painful for people this time of year. And I get it. People are visiting, so and so Aunt Carol's being there, Uncle John's going to be there, you need to be there, oh, we want you from the beginning until the end. And it can be really tough to say, no, I got to go get on my meeting. But I'll tell you, I absolutely have to go no matter what, no matter how busy it is. I have to put that ahead of, showing up at a family event. And like you said, taking that 15, 20 minutes out in the morning to focus on our recovery is essential for us to actually show up.
Absolutely. You know what? It's interesting is that being sober for, several decades, you start to
Mhm.
see patterns in going on. And my biggest problem when I first got sober, I will tell you, was when somebody told me that I had to put recovery first, that I had to put
Mhm.
the job second, I had to put everything second, that I had to make sure that one, I was physically sober, but two, I was tapped in to, what
Mhm.
I call a higher power, that I was awake and aware and alive, and that I was aware of what was
Mm.
going on, right? Because so many times, look, if you come from alcoholism, you spent a lot of time unaware of what was going on, right?
Right.
Like you're just swept up in it. And I fought this because, Kristina, I'm like, look, I'm a busy guy. Really seriously, I'm going to have to do this every day of my life. And the answer is yes, I did have to do it every day, but I do have to do it every day of my life. It's not a struggle like I thought it was going to be most of the time. But what I've noticed is that if I can put sobriety first and make sure that my needs are taken care of in that specific area, I seem to have time to get everything else done.
Yes. Yes, of course you do. I know it's a game we play with ourselves, but if you had to get medical treatment that day and it meant that you could actually enjoy the next day, you would make time for it. And that's what this is for me. That is what it is. And I'm married to somebody who attends, recovery meetings and reaches out to people. And we both know that our marriage will be better. People around me know that that's just what I have to do. And it's not about, I know like in the beginning, it used to be kind of a concern about whether I would relapse. I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be stressed out. I want to remember and have gratitude about the gift that was given to me of recovery. And so everybody has a better time if I show up, at my home group this coming Wednesday. I know that there may be people who say, you've been doing this long, you don't need to do it anymore. Not true. Not true.
Yeah, it is not true. And I think the thing is, the other side of the coin, what I've noticed is that when I do not take time to do this,
Hmm.
everything is a struggle and I have a hard time getting things done. I have a hard time executing, right? And just taking that little bit of time out. I always, in coaching, I always call this kind of my Wi-Fi connection. I need my
Hmm.
recovery Wi-Fi connection. I need to every day make sure that I'm on the
I
network
love it.
and that I'm
Yeah.
connected, right? I am. And I also take time in the middle of the day to make sure I'm connected as well. And then at the end of the day, I do that as well because, especially I think like you, like every day, do I wake up and go, oh, today's the day I might relapse? I don't say that. I don't live in fear that I'm going to I used to live in fear that I was going to
Hmm.
relapse. I don't anymore. I've kind of let go of that because I know if I do the work and I ask for another day of recovery, another day of sobriety, I will get that. That has been my
Yes.
experience. If I just do the work and do what's in front of me, everything is going to work out okay. But it's hard because it really does seem just like alcohol seemed like, well, it can't be the alcohol that's ruining my life, when it definitely
Right.
was, right? It
Uh-huh.
definitely seems it's like, how in the hell am I going to take out some time to do some meditation? Don't you know my life Don't you know what's actually
Right.
going on day to day with me?
Yeah, well, and I gotta say this gonna sound like walking through the snow 5 miles to the school story. But when you and I got sober, you carried around daily readers. You carried
Yes.
your literature with you. And now, through like even through Recovered Life, you have access to all kinds of things that will help you tap in and stay in touch. And that has to be a habit. We've done a lot of shows about habits and things like that. But this week it is even more important to show up and connect.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? And I noticed because one of the benefits of being in Recovered Life is that we've got meetings going on all the time. And,
Right?
if you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. We've got meetings. I don't know how many meetings we had, 10, 15 meetings last week. And
Yes.
there's a lot of meetings going on. And I've noticed the attendance is down as you start
Hmm.
to get towards the holiday. And I've had friends tell me it's like, oh, like I had a buddy that didn't make it to old school that typically does make it to my old school meeting on Thursday and was like, I'm just overwhelmed with stuff. Like there's so much stuff going on. I just can't take the time to actually do this at this time. And you've got to, I have to make it a priority to be able to do that, because if I
Hmm.
don't, I just get swept up in it. I've even had to take times in early recovery and holidays, and even in the last 5 years, I will tell you, just to step out of the holiday gathering, Christina, hit a pause, check in with
Hmm.
myself, make sure that's cool, everything's cool, and then go back into the party. Just taking a
Totally.
couple minutes to myself.
It is so true. This Thursday I'll be hosting my Setting Healthy Boundaries group coaching meeting. And that's the one you need to be in before you go into the family holiday. That's where you need to be. You need to be thinking about that stuff before you have to show up. And our families, they installed our buttons so they know exactly which buttons to push, and we're carrying in all of our stuff into that place. And so really go be with your people first.
Oh man, I'm going to tell you a story, Christina, that I remember in early recovery. I was living in San Francisco, and my family lives in Northern California, so I went to Northern California from it was a couple hour drive. Went to a
Hmm.
holiday party, and I was already on edge because this was one of my first you know,
Mm.
sober holidays where I had it. So I was already, because at that time there were people in my family who drank, and I was still a
Hmm.
little uneasy about what it was going to be like to go through a holiday party, which is always fun at my house, but
Hmm.
sober when everybody else is drinking. And I didn't also want to be the guy, right, that was like the bummer. I didn't want to tell people who don't have an alcohol problem that they need to not drink in front of me, right? Like I don't want
Right.
to, I've never really wanted to be that guy, right? I'm the one that has the issue. I'm the one that has to deal with it. But I took some friends to go, which was unusual in the thing. It was so stressful. I was so stressed out. And I remember the whole time, I remember that was the first time where I had heard a tip like, hey, just excuse yourself, say you have to go to the bathroom. And there was a lot of drinking around. And my friend was sober. My two of the people that I brought were sober,
Good.
and which was good, right? But I had to step out. And I remember going to the bathroom and just kind of checking in with God. I was like, okay, I just need to get through the rest of this holiday, right? The
Right.
rest of tonight. It's 3 more hours of this. I have to get through this sober, and I'd like to also enjoy it. It wasn't that I was having a bad time. It was that it was pushing all of my addiction buttons, right?
Yes.
Doot, 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 doot.
Absolutely.
They were being pushed because it
Right.
was in a place that I had drank before. It was like, all of that kind of stuff. It can be so stressful. But I learned that important lesson during that period of time, to just, okay, I have to step away for a second. I have to no one's going to die. I have to put a pause on it. And
Right.
then I've got to check in, and then I've got to go, then I can go back.
Totally, totally. Talking about like not being the guy who wants other people to feel comfortable drinking around you. I remember very distinctly my first year, I was so self-conscious about whether people would want to drink around me that I kept telling everyone that I was with, go ahead and have a drink. It doesn't, yeah, it won't bother me. Don't worry about it. And they looked at me and they finally said, we don't want to drink. And I couldn't believe that. Like my perspective was so that I mean, I still had such an alcoholic perspective that, they were suffering because they weren't drinking. And they were letting me know that they don't really care that much about drinking and they don't
Oh,
like to drink that much. And really the only time that they did is when they were with me, who was insisting that they drink. It's kind of
it's so
interesting.
funny you say that because it is I always say this, our relationship with alcohol is warped. My relationship with
Mhm.
alcohol now, even though I'm 29 years sober, is where I don't look at alcohol the
Yes.
same way as other people look at it. I don't
Mm-mm.
know if you've had this experience of pouring somebody a glass of wine in
Mhm.
recovery. I've had
Mhm.
house guests and I admit like I am married to somebody who is not an alcoholic. She could drink
Mhm.
and it's absolutely fine. The only thing that bugs me about it, they'll leave like a half a glass of wine.
Yeah, it's
And it just
travesty.
baffles me. It really, I honestly finally, because I remember my family saying, hey, setting up those ground rules, which is a whole other show of like what you can
Mhm.
accept in roommates, significant others, or whatever. I remember saying, it really doesn't bug me that people drink around me, but leaving a half a glass of wine will I hate it. It bugs the shit out of me. Like even
Yep.
today, I'm like, are you gonna drink that? Are you gonna jump right? But it was funny. I remember pouring a glass of wine for somebody, and they're like, whoa, dude, like that's
It's a
like a
huge
half a
pour.
bottle of wine. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm looking at them and I'm like, oh, is that too much? And they're like, too much. Dude, it's like a half. It's like I can't even carry this. I'm gonna need a straw or whatever. But I was so baffled by it. I was like, okay, well,
Mhm.
and I remember telling this person, I said, so what is an appropriate amount that somebody would drink that
Right.
was at a
They
party
didn't.
where they're like, no, like you pour it to like just like this much and you don't go over it. And I was like, I was I was a little embarrassed, honestly, because it really showed I was like, I told the person, I said, I'm sorry, you're talking to the wrong guy. Like, I don't
Yeah.
freaking understand why if you have a
Right.
bottle of wine, you're not gonna want half of it to yourself. Like,
Right.
come on. I'm buying.
Get
Like,
more. Yeah.
what's the deal here?
It is completely true. Yes. They told me that and, slamming your drinks and all of that. I totally feel that. There's an itch about it that has not gone away. That if I'm doing the dishes and pouring out wine, I just think this is abusive. A little
Oh,
warped.
I was at a party the other day. Somebody left half of a beer. And I
Mhm.
was like, what? And finally, I was just like, okay, like you got to dump this or you got to do something, right? Like, it's so weird that, like, my perspective, like, look, my awareness about being an alcoholic has changed drastically in 3 decades.
Right.
Like, I get that I'm an alcoholic. I get that I don't have a relationship with alcohol that's normal. But my
Mm.
relationship, how I look at alcohol, is not normal still. It will never be normal. Like, I accept
Mm-mm.
that. I don't beat myself up for it. Like, I don't
Yes.
understand if there's free alcohol, why people aren't drinking. Why are you not
Right.
drinking to
Right.
excess, right? Like, it's baffling to me. It really is baffling to me. I get it intellectually, but down in my core, I'm like, what a shame. What a missed
Yeah.
opportunity.
Oh my gosh, the truth is coming out. Well, one thing that we want to remind everybody is, if you are going to an event where there will be drinking, make sure that you have your plan and your intention on who you're going to talk to, what kind of drink are you going to bring yourself, all of that. We got to make sure we give
Oh,
them something.
it really is like when you look back at your recovery, you're like, ooh, I dodged a bullet there. I dodged a bullet there.
Hmm.
I remember one time I had gone to an event and it was like a restaurant type event, and I knew the people that
Hmm.
were there and everything. And their bartender called in sick, and I was a bartender,
Sure.
so I kind of got elected to bartend, right? And it was very
Wow.
uneasy for people, and I actually really enjoyed bartending. I did. There was a lot about it I enjoyed. I had to give it
Mhm.
up because it's something that I couldn't do. And it was
Right.
interesting because when they asked me to do it, I said, and I was in a good place with my recovery. And I remember telling them, I'm like, look, I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink. And they're like, yeah, we know we
Mhm.
don't want you to drink. That's why we're wondering if we should even ask you to do this. Right. And I just said, you know what? I have no problem doing this because I don't feel that it's a threat. But if I do feel
Mhm.
uncomfortable, I'm going to walk away and you're going to take
Beautiful.
it and you can't make a big deal. Right. And I remember doing it, helping them out. And it was fun because I was talking. And one of the things I loved about bartending was that I could talk to people, right,
Right.
and be of service and stuff like that. So I actually had a really good time. But I remember towards the end, I was smelling certain things. Like there's that bar mat rot. I don't know if you like
Mhm.
remember that. And I was like, that kind of keyed me off a little bit. And I was like, okay, you know what? Like I've had enough of this. This is good. Like more than this, like I helped them out. I don't really need to do this because
Right.
there's now somebody else that could do it. But that's just a perfect example. You could do whatever you want in recovery as long as you're honest with yourself and you touch base with yourself, right? And there's been situations, honestly, where people have just asked me, "Hey, could you hand out drinks?" And I've
Mhm.
been in a space where I've just for whatever reason felt uneasy, Christina. Not
Right.
that I necessarily wanted to drink, I just didn't feel on the beam that day. Everybody has
Mhm.
days, and I've
Mhm.
and I've said no. I've said no.
Yeah.
I'll do the chips and dip. I'll do whatever, but have Bob or Sue do that. I'm not gonna do that.
No, no, that's so good. That's really good. And I think that you get to that awareness by doing what we're talking about in this episode by putting the sobriety first. Period. That's the thing that you don't want to lose. We do know people relapse during this time. We hope that you don't. Welcome back. Obviously, we want you back as soon as possible. But Damon and I are both proof that you can get through the merriest time of the year without drinking or losing your sobriety. And you do not have to do it alone. It's a lonely time for some people. And so want to make sure that I say to everyone, there will be people there. There are people in the recovery community where you can connect. And that's what we want you to do. Stay ahead of it. Plan your weeks. Plan this week to see who you're going to connect with. Know who you're going to talk to. On Christmas Day, when I have this little trick that when I'm feeling kind of rough about something, because I've shared very openly, sometimes the holidays can be harder for me. I will take that time to reach out to people and really send a beautiful text now. Used to be a phone call, beautiful text about the gifts that they've given me for the year. And
Mm.
by the time I'm finished with, let's say, 3 or 4, I'm already out of that space. So that's also a way of being of service, which of course is part of our sobriety and our recovery.
And it's not really about drinking or drug use. It's not really
Mm-mm.
about that, really, at the end of the day, because look, one of the things I've learned in being in recovery and coaching and having friends like you and having great
Mhm.
discussions with all the recovered life coaches who have so much knowledge is that the relapse with people doesn't happen spontaneously like that, especially after
No.
you have time. It's not like all of a sudden you go. It's what happens is the acting out.
Yeah.
That's what I find, or the internal dialogue. You might act totally normal on the outside, but the internal dialogue starts to turn against you. And it
Mhm.
and alcoholism is one of those things, Christina, that I feel like a buddy of mine, Don, says, they always say cunning, baffling, and powerful, but he throws in
Mhm.
patient. It's patient. It waits. I don't look at recovery as a thing that's trying to get me anymore. Like I don't look at it, but it is true the fact that it's patient, that it will wait for that opening. And then that voice said, what would solve all this? A drink. And the
Right.
thing is, the problem with that is that it's that voice is such a propagandist because it's true. The
Mhm.
immediate thing will be solved by the drink. The pain will
Right.
stop for a couple of, it's true. It will. Like when people
Mhm.
say, well, drinking's not going to help anything. No, then you're not an alcoholic. Yes, it does. It helps a lot of
Yes.
things immediately, right?
It
The
does.
problem
It
is
does.
that if you're an alcoholic, it keys off a whole other stuff that makes it just worse, right? So the acting out or the internal dialogue or the not okay with the here and now, what I like to refer to
Right.
it, is what I
Mm-hmm.
think all of us are trying to. And what I found in my own self is that when I ignored that and I didn't do the sobriety first, Christmas second, what happened
Yes.
is that it got me closer to a place where I could relapse potentially. And I've seen this with people 28 years gone out, 30 years gone out,
Mm-hmm.
50 years gone out, because there were so many of this inner turmoil, and then acting out, the life got so bad, the quality of life got so bad that really the only solution is to drink, right? Like
True.
that's the solution that becomes uh the most reasonable at the time,
Right.
right? And it's an unconscious thing. So it's like by putting sobriety first, what I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit more on that brake pad, so that if I do get into a situation that I feel like that, I can stop it long before that actual threat happens.
Well, that's such good advice or good, information because yes, relapse does not happen within the moment. It happens a week before, 2 weeks before. And, if you find yourself in that place right now, you know, uh, get in contact with somebody and start telling them the truth, telling them I'm not so good. I would rather have a friend tell me they're not so good and, us take the time that's necessary to connect than find out that, they did the obligatory, I'm great, everything's great. And then they went out that weekend. So we want you to be
Absolutely.
safe.
And look, if anybody's listening to this that's newly sober, you have two people here that have multiple decades of sobriety. And we're not just saying that because, oh, look at us. We have, right? Like it was hard fought. I mean,
Hmm.
both
It
Christina
is.
and I have stories that we had to work on it over years. But I will tell you the one thing that I have learned, and I would say, is that if you put your sobriety first, your Christmas is going to be better. And I like what you
Yes.
said just about checking in. And, I would invite everybody that we have so many free meetings going on in Recovered Life, and we'll probably put even more this Christmas week here. So definitely check in, go to Recovered Life, check in. We've got a great meeting called Recovery Check-In where that's all people do is check in those
That's right.
meetings.
That is right.
Excellent.
Such good stuff.
Christina, happy Merry Christmas.
Thank
And
you. You too.
we're going to have a great, guys, this has been such an amazing 2022, and I can't wait for 2023. Go out, connect with both Christina and I and the community on Recovered Life. Guys, we're offering a month for free for CORE. You can go to all of those really cool meetings, all those really niche meetings like the food meeting, and we've got meditation, all kinds of stuff. So check us out at recoveredlife.us. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.